What's up, guys? Today I'm going to be showing you how to install Flutter. Flutter is a framework created by Google. Um, it allows you to build to a bunch of different platforms like mobile, web, native desktop applications, and some more. And it uses the Dart programming language. So to install, you're going to want to look up Flutter installation and click on this link here. I'll have the link in the description as well. And then you're going to pick your platform. I'm on Windows. So I wouldn't worry about these requirements here. Windows PowerShell should already be installed, so that shouldn't be a worry for you. And then Git you may need to have installed. I'm honestly not sure because I've always had Git installed on my computer when I installed Flutter. I kind of have a suspicion that you only need it if you're going to be cloning the Flutter repository, but I'm not sure. You may want to download it just to be safe. I'll have a link in the description to download it. It's very simple. So yeah, you're going to want to click on this button here and it'll install the Flutter SDK in a zip file. So I have already done that. It takes quite a while. So in your downloads, you'll have your Flutter zip file, and you're just going to want to extract that. So you can right click on it, extract all, and then it'll make this folder here. I recommend using 7-zip. It'll be much faster, but Windows extraction works fine too. So then in here you'll have your Flutter SDK folder. Yeah, so this is the folder that you're going to want to put to a specific location. It doesn't actually matter which location, but you're going to want to know where it is. The only requirement about the folder that you're placing this in is nowhere in the path to this folder can there be a space. So if I had a space, let's say like after users, or if Flutter Windows 3.3.3 had spaces instead of underscores, that wouldn't work. So I'm just going to put it in my C drive because that's the easiest place for me to put it. And once that's there, it should be relatively quick. You're going to want to go into it and you're going to want to find the bin folder. So this folder is important because we're going to have to add the path here to your environment variables. So I'll explain what those are in a second, but basically you're going to want to select bin and then go up to this see more and click on copy path. Alternatively, you can just copy this path here and then add bin to the end of it. Either one works fine. And then you're going to want to add that to your environment variables. So to access those, you're going to want to click on start and look up path, click enter. It'll bring you to this nice little pop-up here, and you're going to look into environment variables. So an environment variable is basically a list of paths that your any application can look to try and find some content. So in our case, when we run or when we're using Flutter, we're going to want our IDE to be able to find the Flutter SDK. And to do that, it's going to look into path, and it's going to look for every path that exists in this variable until it finds the SDK. And if we don't add it here, it has no way of knowing where the Flutter SDK is, so you won't be able to use your Flutter. So to add it, you're going to want to double click on path here. You can add it to your user variables or your system variables. It doesn't really matter as long as you're going to be on this user whenever you're developing. System variables require admin privileges, so if you're doing this on a school computer or something, make sure you do it on the user variable. And basically all you're going to have to do is click the next empty line and just paste your path in there. Press enter and then make sure you click on OK because otherwise it won't save. If you're really worried like me all the time, you can double click, make sure it's still there, and then OK out of this guy. Okay, so now we have Flutter on our computer. There are a couple things we need to do. First of all, we're going to open a command line. So to do that, just open your kind of start here and look up CMD, press enter, and you'll have your command line. So mine should all work because I have all the dependencies installed, but you will want to enter Flutter doctor, and basically this just checks to see if everything is installed correctly. So you'll press space, and it'll go through all the different sort of tools that you need to run Flutter. So mine all work, but I would be surprised if you didn't have this error, because everyone I've seen install has an error here. So for Android Studio, you're going to need that installed. I'll have a link in the description for that as well. And I'll also have a link for Visual Studio installed or installation. So for Android, you're going to need to have the latest version of Android, which right now is SDK 33. And you're also going to need the Android command line tools. So I'll show you how to install those in case you have that error there. Otherwise, you're all good to go now. So you're going to want to open Android Studio. It doesn't matter what project you have open, but then you're going to navigate into File, Settings. And then up here, you're just going to want to look up SDK. Open the Android SDK here. And then you can click Escape to get rid of all these little annoying things. You're going to want to click on the checkbox here next to Android API 33, or whichever one it's telling you to install. It may change in the future, I'm not sure. And then click on Apply or OK, and it'll install, and then you'll have a little menu where you click Finish, and that's good. And then also you're going to need the command line tools. So you can go in here to the next tab, which is SDK Tools, and you should be able to find it relatively near the top. Here we are, Android SDK Command Line Tools Latest. And then you're just going to want to install that as well. So that's how you get all those tools installed. Once you've done that, you're going to want to run Flutter Doctor again, and it should look the way mine does. You may get a Visual Studio or, a Visual Studio thing. I'll have Visual Studio in the description as well on top of VS Code. But then once your Flutter Doctor all works, then you're actually ready to go. So you can close your command line, and you can open the IDE that you choose to use. I use VS Code. You can also use Android Studio, but either one's fine. But I don't use Android Studio. So you're gonna want to open VS Code, and here we are. So there are two things that you need to do to start a Flutter app. Both very easy. You're gonna want to go to Extensions here on the left, and you're gonna want to look up Flutter. Oh, not Flutter. I already have it installed, but you're just going to click here and click on Install. And then once that's installed, you're going to want to go back to your Explorer. I guess it doesn't really matter, but anyways. And then you're going to click on Control-Shift-P. And then for me, it pops up here because it's recently used, but for you, you'll probably want to write Flutter and then New Project, and you'll just click Enter there. Depending on what you want to create, you can choose one of these. Generally, you're going to create an application, and then you just choose where you want to create that. So I'm going to go into YouTube Code, and we'll make a new little thing, demo. And then you select that folder, and I'll call it Flutter Application 1, doesn't really matter. And you'll create your Flutter project. So it's just going to load. It's going to create all the files that you need for the project. And yeah. This should be creating an actual application. I'm not sure why it's not right now. I'll try and do it again. That's very weird. Do I still have it installed? Okay. So if you have that error right there, make sure you go into your extensions and make sure that Flutter is enabled. I don't know why it was disabled, but there you go. It's actually good that I ran into that because I'm sure someone watching may run into that. And yeah, that's all basically. So right now in your lib folder, that's where all your code goes. And you get a nice little demo app to start with. So now to run, you're either going to want to click F5 to run in debug mode, or you can open a terminal and write flutter run. By default, it's going to build to Windows. You can see that down here on the right. you can click on this to change to Chrome, Edge, or mobile emulators. So I'm just going to run it on Windows for now. Okay. Flutter run. It's going to take a moment to build. Here you can choose. This is more for debugging that you're going to choose. I'll choose Windows, and we'll see it build. It takes a moment, but yeah. So there you go. You have installed Flutter. And so Flutter is really useful for a lot of things. It has a nice game engine called Flame. That's very easy to install. And it's also just really good for making apps in general. The sort of layout is very intuitive. And yeah, it's a pretty solid framework. Here we go. So your app will open up and it'll look like this. You'll be able to increment the button. It's very simple, but yeah, this is the demo that they provide you with. So yeah, that's how you install Flutter. Hopefully this was useful. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, you know. But yeah, cool. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. Hopefully this was helpful.